Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. The question we had this morning, did these two ladies go rogue on that final play? Lexi Hull, at the end of the game on Indianapolis radio, she spilled the beans. She said that play didn't go exactly as planned.
In the final seconds of a game that the Indiana Fever needed to win, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham walked out of a timeout huddle, locked eyes, and silently agreed to throw out the play that had just been drawn up on the whiteboard. No verbal confirmation, no approval from the sideline. Just one look between two players who had already made up their minds before the whistle even blew to resume play. And we know this didn't just happen because we suspected it. We know it because Lexi Hull went on Indianapolis radio after the game and said it out loud.
Doesn't even look Stephanie White in the face. Doesn't even look her in the eyes. But you know who she did look in the eyes? Yeah, Sophie, that's what the fuck we do right there.
They didn't run the play. Let that sit with you for a moment. In the highest pressure situation of that game with the clock bleeding out and everything on the line, two players overruled the coaching staff in real time. Not in a timeout debate, not in a post-game argument, not behind closed doors. Right there on the court in front of everyone watching. The design play was abandoned. A different play was executed. The shot went in, and then the celebration told the rest of the story. Now, before we get into what all of this actually means, let's give proper credit for what Clark and Cunningham pulled off because it was genuinely elite. According to the breakdown that came out afterward, the drawn-up play was designed with Kelsey Mitchell as the primary option and Clark as a secondary read. Aaliyah Boston's screen was set to free Mitchell.
Coach Anderson. Just so people know, Kelsey Mitchell was a primary option on this play, and Caitlin Clark was the secondary option. Sophie made the decision to give it to CeCe as the inbound defender, took away the Kelsey pass. That's why the pass was late.
The pin down wasn't set for Clark at all. That's not a play built for Caitlin Clark to be the finisher. That's a play built around a different decision entirely. What Sophie Cunningham recognized in that moment was that the inbound defender had taken away the direct pass to Mitchell. The primary option was gone the second the defense adjusted. And instead of freezing, instead of forcing the original design into a coverage that was specifically built to stop it,
the first thing that shows that play wasn't for Caitlin is AB screening to free Mitchell. The second thing is the pin down isn't set for CeCe. A lot of serendipity. Sophie made a clutch read and react play, and CeCe is clutch as F.
Cunningham read the court, made a decision, and got the ball to Clark through the back door. Clark did what Clark does. The shot went through the net. The Fever won. From a pure basketball standpoint, that is an incredibly high-level read. That is a player seeing the defense faster than the drawn-up play could account for, making a split-second adjustment, and executing under the kind of pressure that breaks most players. This wasn't two players freelancing because they wanted to show off. This was two players recognizing that the play was dead before it started and pivoting to something that could actually work. That is genuine basketball intelligence operating at full speed. But here's where the story stops being just about basketball. When the shot went in, Caitlin Clark did not celebrate with Stephanie White. She went straight to Sophie Cunningham. She dapped up Cody McMahon. She moved through that court celebrating with specific people, and Stephanie White was not one of them. Clark walked directly past her head coach without making eye contact, not a quick glance and a move on, not a distracted moment where she simply missed her in the crowd. She walked past her. You don't do that by accident. This is not a small thing, and it doesn't get smaller by calling it a small thing. Athletes are conditioned from the time they are 10 years old to acknowledge their coaches after big moments. It is among the most deeply ingrained instincts in competitive sports. You score the game winner, you run to your bench, you find your coach. That is the default behavior.
For how much confidence do you have in Caitlin for that shot?
Well, Austin drew up the play. I mean, Austin does a lot of our end-of-game stuff, and it's what he drew up. You know, we executed it perfectly. You know, I think you see we've been in a lot of those.
Lexi Hull's looking like, damn, that ain't really what we drew up. Caitlin's looking like, damn, shut the hell up.
End-of-game situations, and we've done a really good job of executing.
Oh, you can't make this stuff
It happens in every sport at every level because it is essentially automatic. For Caitlin Clark, one of the most studied, most prepared, most situationally intelligent players in professional basketball, to break that automatic behavior in the most emotional moment of the game is not an oversight, it is information. She celebrated with the people who were part of the decision. Sophie Cunningham was part of the decision. Cody McMahon, by all accounts, operates in that inner circle. Stephanie White was not part of the decision. And the celebration reflected that exactly. Clark's body told you the story that her post-game quotes were never going to tell you. And then there is Stephanie White's face. This is the detail that the sanitized coverage will gloss over, and it is the most revealing thing that happened after that buzzer sounded. Think about what coaching reactions look like when a last-second shot goes in and wins the game. Think about every coach you have ever seen in that situation. The sprint down the sideline. The fist pump, the complete loss of composure in the best possible way. That is what pure relief and validation looks like when the outcome lands the right way. That is involuntary, that is real. Stephanie White stood frozen, not frozen in the overwhelmed, overcome with emotion way that coaches sometimes get after enormous wins. Frozen in the processing way. The way someone freezes when something happened that they did not fully control and are now computing what it means. Her team just won. The shot just went in, and her face looked like someone running a calculation rather than someone celebrating a victory. That frozen moment is coaching body language that speaks an entire volume by itself. A coach who is fully in control of her team, who has the complete trust and buy-in of her best players.
But being able to come away and withstand what we withstood in that run, and to be able to pull together, get some key stops, shot C. Yeah, hell yeah, great pass, so. It wasn't pretty, okay? It wasn't pretty. We still got room for growth, a lot of room for growth, but great job getting a W on the road.
Who just had her game plan executed and validated. That coach does not look like what Stephanie White looked like in that moment. That frozen expression was Stephanie White understanding in real time that her players had gone off script. The outcome had bylaid everyone out, and she was now going to have to figure out what to do with all of it. The win covers it publicly. It does not resolve it privately. And this only came out because Lexi Hull was not being careful with her words on that radio broadcast. The confirmation arrived. Hull wasn't trying to create a controversy. She wasn't making a calculated decision to expose a rift on her own team. She was talking naturally, the way you talk when you're excited after a game and you're not filtering every sentence through a PR lens. The truth just came out. They didn't run the play. It was not a coach-designed intentional deviation. Two players made a unilateral call in the final seconds and it happened to work. Once that confirmation is public, there is no unconfirming it. The story is real. The dynamic is real. Now let's talk about what this dynamic actually reveals, because this is the conversation that makes people uncomfortable, and that is precisely why we need to have it. Caitlin Clark is not a player who freelances out of carelessness or ego. That framing completely misreads who she is. She watches more film than anyone in that building. She understands system basketball at a level that most professional players never develop. She runs plays. She trusts structure. She is not a gunslinger by nature. When Clark deviates from a design play, it is because she sees something. She sees the defense, she sees the mismatch, she sees the reality in front of her that does not match what was drawn up, and she makes a decision based on what is actually there rather than what was theoretically supposed to be there. That is not rebellion. That is elite court vision. That is the difference between executing a play and winning a game. But here's where it gets genuinely complicated, because being right does not make the dynamic uncomplicated. When your best player is willing, even correctly willing, to override the coaching staff in the final seconds of a game, and when that override gets confirmed publicly by a teammate, and when the coach's body language in response to the winning shot communicates something other than pure joy, you have a situation that does not resolve itself just because the scoreboard landed in your favor. Winning this one game does not fix the underlying question. The underlying question is, what is the actual relationship between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White right now? Because everything that is visible on the surface, the frozen moment, the walk past, the celebration routing, the radio confirmation, all of it points at a gap. Maybe not a catastrophic gap, maybe not an irreparable gap, but a gap between the player's instincts and the coaching structure, and gaps like that do not stay contained. They show up again, and the next time they show up, the shot might not fall. There's also the other piece that has been circulating, the moment during the game where Clark was preparing to check back in and Stephanie White held her on the bench longer than Clark appeared to expect. You watch Clark's reaction. That was not a player who was fine with the decision. That was a player who was ready, who knew she was ready, and who was being overruled by her head coach in a moment she did not agree with. That tension was visible on the bench in real time. It did not disappear when the game ended. What we are watching with this Indiana Fever team is the most compelling and most volatile dynamic in professional basketball right now. The talent on this roster is legitimate. Clark is one of the most impactful players in the sport's history. Sophie Cunningham proved in this moment that she is operating at a level of trust and synergy with Clark that goes beyond what the stat sheet shows. Kelsey Mitchell is a proven contributor. The pieces are there, but talent without alignment is unstable. And what played out in those final seconds, the look, the deviation, the frozen coach, the celebration routing, the radio broadcast confirmation, is a window into a team that is not fully aligned right now. That doesn't mean the season is over. That doesn't mean this can't be fixed. It means it has to be addressed honestly and directly, in a way that the public post-game comments are never going to show us. Stephanie White knows what happened on that court. The frozen moment told us she knows. The question is what she does with it, because a coaching staff that responds to a successful freelance by pretending it didn't happen is a coaching staff that has just told its best player that going rogue carries no consequences when it works.
During the game, Caitlin Clark getting ready to check on in, Stephanie White tells her to sit her ass back down. Look at this. It's my time. Okay, we're at the X minute mark. All right, my time to check back in. Stephanie White says, oh, no. You better sit your ass down. Caitlin Clark dejected.
And that is a message with compounding effects that don't stay confined to one play. The people who are going to call this a non-story will point at the final score. They will say everyone should be celebrating and this is all being read into too deeply. They will do what they always do when the uncomfortable story is right in front of everyone. They will try to make the discomfort about the people noticing rather than about the thing being noticed. But the score doesn't answer the questions that the body language raised. The win doesn't undo what Lexi Hull said. The celebration happened the way it happened. Clark walked past White. White stood frozen. These are observable, documented facts, and they all point in the same direction. This franchise is sitting on something generational. What surrounds that generational talent will determine whether it becomes a dynasty or a cautionary story about what happens when instinct and authority can't find the same page. The talent is there. The will is clearly there. Clark and Cunningham proved they can manufacture a game winner from nothing but trust and shared vision. The question now is whether that same level of trust can exist between the court and the sideline. Because right now, based on everything we saw in those final seconds and in the moments after, it doesn't. And the frozen moment on Stephanie White's face was the most honest thing anyone on that sideline showed us all night. This isn't a story that ends with one shot going in. This is a story that is just getting started. Stay locked in.